We're waiting for, okay, we are live.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome, everybody. Is staff ready? Staff ready to go? Technology is ready to go. We're recording. Committee members ready to go?
Yes.
All right, then we'll call this meeting to order. We are live from the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. This is meeting number 4 for the Drainage and Flood Management Committee. Susan, do you have any open remarks?
Well, I know we have, Brandon's going to make a couple of opening remarks in just a second, but just real quickly, I think what we want to do is just thank you, all of you, for all of your dedication to this process. I know it's taken a lot of time and a lot of study. This is a real technical work that we have to do in this committee, and I really appreciate the time and attention that all of you have given to the task that we have been asked to perform. We have a lot of actions that we need to get through today, and we want to hear from everyone as we go through this process. So Chris and I have worked with the staff to kind of outline sort of the process that we will go through when we get to item number 3, and we'll outline that when we get there. But I do want you to know, if you didn't see the email this morning from Stephanie, that just so that you can start to plan, when we get to that item, we're going to randomly go around and give each district 3 minutes for just some general opening statements, anything you want to say at that time. That will not limit your ability to have dialogue or discussion during the items that we bring forward. It's just an opportunity if the district wants to make a statement. So y'all may want to think about who you want to give that statement, or if each of you want to take a minute to do that. So just start thinking about that as we go through the agenda. I'll turn it back to Chris.
Thank you. As said, when we get to item number 3, the board discussion and final consideration, we'll go through more in depth of how that process will run. Okay, and I believe we have one of our tri-chairs. Yes, to make some opening comments.
Thank you, Chris, and good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Logan, one of the tri-chairs, and just want to express our gratitude on behalf of the tri-chairs for all of your commitment in this process. We know that it was a very fast process, and I'd like to say that this was done by imperfect people, but we have a perfect opportunity to do something significant in this community. So you all's work is important. I would like to say that this is also not formally it is the last meeting, but should not be our last stop of engagement. I think the important thing is, after we get through deliberation tonight, that we stay committed to the process and see it through the vote as the next key step, and then lastly from the implementation stage. So I hope that you all, from volunteer to volunteer, will stay committed to this journey and know that your work is not going in vain. City staff has done a remarkable job of supporting you all with the information to make informed decisions. But I'll leave you with this charge: is just remember that everyone is coming from their own respective district, and I encourage that type of deliberation. But let's keep in mind what we're really trying to build, which is a bond program that can garner the support citywide to ensure that we have success in May. So I just want to say thank you, encourage you all to keep that top of mind. And then lastly, to really focus on the greatest needs that this city has, as we're focused on shifting to higher gears, being more of an attracting destination for multi-generations. Keep that in mind. But we have a very important task at hand. You all have a great opportunity to lead us to the future. So thank you again for your time and your service to this committee.
Thank you, Brandon. Next, we have a staff presentation.
Thank you, Chris. On behalf of the staff, we also want to thank you for your time and dedication. We know this is not easy, and it takes commitment, and we appreciate you attending the meetings and the bus tours and learning all about our city and these projects. So again, thank you. So for tonight, it's my job just to remind you of your bucket size. So you have 165 million to work with. Think of this as your checkbook, and you're not allowed to write hot checks, right? We need to stay within our 165 million. So your job, first and foremost, is to make a recommendation to City Council within that 165 million. After that, we spent a lot of time talking about there's a $6.6 billion need and we have a $1.2 billion bond. So obviously this bond is not the answer for everything. So we're asking you to prioritize projects that did not make it into the bucket that you want council to consider in the future. Whether some money comes from the federal government through an infrastructure bill, possibly ARPA money, there could be a raise grant. So we'd like to hear from you. What are those projects that should be a priority? Another thing, the last two committees, they did not kill themselves ranking all of those projects below the line. What they did was they said, these projects are important. And the reason they did that is, one, I think they don't want to beat each other up, but two, take a raise grant, for example. If there's a project, in that list that is a good candidate for a raise grant, we want to send that one, and put an application in for that. So we don't want to be, handcuffed to, we got to go with that first or that second project. So if you can just give us, these are the projects that are important, I think that gets us there. Our streets committee did that, but they had one project that they said, F streets. This is more important than anything else. So if any money becomes available through savings or federal money, let's do F street. So you can do that as well. So I offer that as an option. And then thirdly, if there's any other recommendations that you would like to make to us, that can come in the form of a memo from the co-chairs to the city manager and copy mayor council. So with that, just a quick reminder of the timeline. You're gonna take a vote today. You're gonna make a recommendation, and then those recommendations will be presented to council on January the 12th at a B session. After that, on January 10th, that's when council is gonna actually take action on what our bond package will look like. So it's there that they're gonna firm it up, and they may take your recommendations. They may take your recommendation, make some tweaks, but that's when they're gonna do that on February 10th. And at that time, they're also gonna call the election. And then after that, the voters will go to the polls on May the 7th. So that's the process that we have in front of us. So once again, thank you for your time. Looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you. Now we're on agenda item number 3, where we get to spend $165 million. Okay. Basically, we have several things we need to go through here. We have one, there's the above the line projects that are currently recommended by staff. There's below the line projects that we've all talked about and asked for information on. There's also recommendations for future bond committees and prioritizations and various motions that have been submitted. So the order of business we're going to follow for this part is 1, each district by random will have 3 minutes to make some comments, statements. You can use that. Each district can use that as they wish to talk about projects or process or stuff of that nature. Secondly, we'll be going through the motions. We're going to start with it's on the backside, but the one that says FY 2022 Bond Committee Motions and Recommendations. These are the ones that Susan and I developed based on the conversations we had with each district. And as you can see, the way it was put together, it shows how here's a recommendation, but here's the other committee members who also made a similar recommendation. So we'll go through those. After we go through those, if there's any district recommendations that haven't been made yet, we can go through those as well. And then finally, we'll start going through the below the line projects. And then we'll organize those. And Susan, is there anything else we need to cover?
I think that's it. What we're going to do, we're just going to kind of go through this and see how it goes. And we'll make some notes along the way based on if a particular action is passed, and then that leads to for example, if the issue on the art situation, if that passes based on the comments that we have here, then we're going to have to reallocate the art money to something that would now be, quote, above the line, because that's part of the $165 million bucket. So we'll have to deal with that as well, if in fact we end up with funding to reallocate. So that will also be part of the process that we do when we start to go through the actual projects. So everybody understand what we're going to do? So I think we're going to start first with the 3 minutes that each district gets, and I'm using a random number generator on my phone to get to 10 so that we don't have to go 1 through 10. So randomly, the first district that came up, and Stephanie will begin timing, is District 8.
There we go. Sorry. Okay, well, here we go. First, DA would like to show appreciation for all the residents and for the public comment the last 2 sessions, and for people taking time out to submit those either in person or online. We certainly have deep appreciation for city staff fielding all the questions and comments and suggestions that we have, and the ones we're submitting as well. It's been an intense 6 weeks, especially for them, and their evenings have been almost completely absorbed. So I'm sure they're looking forward to the holidays. Many thanks to the co-chairs for guiding us through this process and keeping things civil and orderly and collegial. That's been wonderful. And for all of our colleagues for the same. And many thanks to the sign language interpreter, whose hands must be exhausted after all of these different weeks. So it's been wonderful to be part of this. We're here to say that we support keeping the funding for the 3 the 3 D8 projects as they're currently listed. No moving around to other projects. And we also show support for all 19 projects as they're currently proposed on the above the line discussions. We want to just reemphasize a few things about George Road, since that has come up a couple of times. That you may remember at the very beginning of this process, City Council chose to move some funds around. And George Road was one of those projects. And it came from within our allocated budgets in our other bond proposals. 700,000 came from Parks and Rec, and 3 million came from street, sidewalks, and bridges at the request of the residents and our city councilmen. So we want everyone to please keep in mind that those funds have been reallocated specifically for this project because it received a higher priority within the D8 list. And we hope that you'll keep that in mind. Finally, just as a few parting comments, we are hoping for one kind of flood, a flood of federal funds. So I'm looking forward to getting to the below the line projects so we can help with that. Along those lines, the future is not going to be like the past based on the climate change models that we're seeing. So we can't necessarily build and plan for what we've experienced the last 20 or 30 years because things are going to be changing. Instead of a 12-inch event, we might have 18 inches or 20 inches. So this is going to be an ongoing and iterative process, and that's why we support a long-term standing committee that can help with this and cooperate with the city staff and serve as a liaison with citizens so that they have a way of getting their concerns elevated when these events happen, and we can start flagging them early in the process and not have to wait 10, 15 years before the time comes. And one final comment, in Rome, there is something called the Cloaca Maxima, which is a sewer project that goes back about 2,000 years. We're hopeful that we can at least get some of these projects to stick around for 50 to 100, even with climate change. So let's hope we make some progress here tonight. Thank you all.
Next is District 6.
Hello, good evening. For District 6, we have 2 projects on the list. Lower French Creek, just to point out, as you see in the spreadsheet, there are 6 properties being removed from the local flooding and overall neighborhood access improvements. So we would like your support on that one. And the other project we have is Marbach Road that we share with District 4. We would also like your support on that one.
Next is District 2.
We agreed with a lot of the comments that were made, especially about utilizing the watershed approach and the standing committee. You stated that very elegantly. And we want to go ahead and also make sure that we're considering enhancing the use of our current green space. And remember that our parks often provide some of our flood control infrastructure in a different manner. And incorporating GI in all bond projects, not just drainage, but also in facilities and streets, et cetera, so that we're reducing runoff and also improving water quality. Just to bring to the attention of the committee, D2 is slated to receive the least amount of dollars for streets and the second to the last for parks. And we have only one drainage project that's listed. And of course, those that were on the tour saw the excruciating situation where there is absolutely no infrastructure for this subdivision. Thank you so much.
Next is District 1.
All right, we'll just reiterate thanks to all the other committee members and staff. I think it's been definitely a good process so far. And I think District 1, we have the two projects. One that was on the tour that everybody knows has a lot of issues with over by North Star Mall and could have multiple more phases, right, to fix some of the people's issues that have come by. But I think I guess that's just one thing I'll say for District 1. I think that this has been a great process of a well-rounded approach for the city. I think District 1, like District 2, a lot of the older districts, we obviously have some of these drainage problems that were created before a lot of the systems were in place and are kind of going back in time to refix things. So appreciate any of the below the line items that can kind of see that end of the spectrum, I guess. And then I think just for I'll reiterate District 8's thought, and I'm sure we'll get to this too, the ongoing committee. I think it'd be great as part of that ongoing committee to have really a list that is created by city staff, similar to what we have here, but really that's apolitical, I would say, that doesn't really have political boundaries and is just based on needs. Because I do think that as we see, there's a huge shortfall of the amount of actual money that we need to have, and a lot of people maybe just as a comment, I guess I won't go any farther down that list, but I don't know if AB has anything else.
I think I'll just reinforce some of what Caleb said. I mean, first off, when it comes to drainage, it's a very complicated issue. It impacts across districts, and especially when you're on the downstream end, that's where you need to typically begin drainage infrastructure. So I think when we look at projects moving forward, I think we would find it helpful if we could maybe look at this at a more of a watershed level approach and having maybe some scoring criteria specific to drainage and flood control type projects. But I think the two that we have here, the Amira and Barbara for District 1, are both very warranted and needed. There's flooding of properties and infrastructure. So we definitely recognize that, and there's so much more need out there that we want to make possible. And we hope to see those that are below the requested line have an opportunity either through other funding sources, maybe not through the bond, but finding a way to make those happen. Thank you.
District 4.
Wanted to thank everybody for taking the time out of their schedules to be here, to be part of this committee. Shows dedication that we've all gone and looked at these sites and seen and heard the citizens that have come to express their very impassionate understanding for what's going on. So thank you everybody for that. And we're doing a couple things. The the recommended projects. We do want to put a, we do want to support that. If there's any money that is, I guess, left over or left on the table, we would like to recommend the item number 16, the Ray Ellison South Drainage Improvement. And that is all. So thank you.
District 9.
We'd also like to thank everybody who participated in the process, the citizens who came to speak, and the hard work done by the chairs and the committee and everybody who was here. District 9 has 3 projects that were identified. One of the projects initially was a larger project on Evans Road that was cut back to allow for 2 other projects. One is to do some drainage by Coker Elementary School, and the other is the Oak Haven Heights neighborhood. Oak Haven Heights does have homes that are flooding as a result of runoff. The area has gotten much worse over the last 5 to 7 years. Residents who've been out there for 20 or 30 years say that it is just a difficult situation now compared before. We've looked at doing berms, and that's just not been feasible to alleviate the runoff into the homes. We would ask you to support the 3 projects identified for District 9, and we support all the other projects that have been identified by the above line for the rest of the committee. We wish there was a bigger pot of money to work with. We recognize all of the flooding and drainage needs of the community, and hopefully there are funds down the road or on the next bond, a bigger portion of the money is allocated to addressing these serious issues. So thank you to everyone, and we look forward to working to present something to the city that's for everyone's benefit.
District 7.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the information on behalf of District 7. I want to thank city staff, our co-chairs, and my fellow committee members for all their hard work and rolling up the sleeves and learning about drainage and how important it is for our community. The 3 of us from District 7 are not recommending there be any changes above the line in any of the drainage projects, and we support the drainage projects that have been presented thus far by all of our fellow committee members. And based on our last conversation, there wasn't going to be any movement, but there may be today. I will tell you, based on our projects for District 7, I want to speak specifically to Sealy Channel Phase 4. I want to let you know that that is a project that was more than 2.5 years in the making. It's on the bond for $7.88 million, but it's a $24 million project. And there's leverage funding that's coming in there from the county. And it is taking out 104 properties from the floodplain. 104 properties. So when the flood of 98 and the flood of 2002 happened and flooded the Woodlawn Lake area, this was an area where the water was to the rooftops. For those of you who went on the tour with us, we also saw the area of Sealy Channel, but we also drove the area of Campman. And why is that important? Because we all know that there's more severe rain events based on the Atlas 14 information that Mr. Garza presented to us. And we know that our flood maps are under revision right now. So what does that mean? They're likely going to expand. Nobody's going to give us a letter that's guaranteeing us that even what's in the floodplain today is not going to expand, or that homes that are currently out of the floodplain will not be put into the floodplain. And so as you look at the needs, and I thank the citizens who come to speak and tell us about their concerns, because in our district, in District 7, the folks along Campman Road came 5 years ago, and they came again this year. And they showed you the video of what happens. Think about yourself if you're sitting at home and it starts to rain really heavily. You start wondering, how high will the water get? When will the water leave the street? When will the water enter the right-of-way? When will the water enter your personal property? When will the water start to flood your structure? These are life safety issues. The city of San Antonio adopted the Climate Action Plan, which says we're going to be a resilient city. We learned our lesson from Snowvid, did we not? Look at all the steps we're taking to ensure that we have a reliable water and a reliable electric system. We need to do the same for drainage. Drainage should be a priority. I've always said it's not a matter of resources, it's a matter of priorities. And I think that everything we do today will hopefully move the needle in that direction. We are supportive of a committee being established so that they are constantly giving feedback, because I know that just by Sealy Channel Phase 4, it took 2.5 years for that to happen, for that leverage funding to come in. And so we ask for your support on those projects, and we hope you'll support Campman below the line. Thank you.
District 10.
Good evening. As delegates, Minnie, Paul, and I appreciate the opportunity to represent the citizens' interests of District 10. We also support the current project list that's been presented. However, I want to point out the city estimated the need for drainage and flood control improvements to be $3.1 billion, 47% of the entire infrastructure need. The city's recommended bond funding for drainage and flood control is a mere $165 million, less than 15% of the total bond package, which in my opinion is wholly inadequate to appropriately address drainage and flood control needs for the city. The 2017 bond only allocated 16% to drainage and flood control. That to me shows a trend of historically disproportionately underfunding drainage and flood control improvements. The 2017 bond proposed streets funding at 3.2 times the funding for drainage and 1.4 times in the instance of parks. This year again reflects a very similar trend in funding at 3 times the funding for, streets funding at 3 times the funding for drainage and 1.7 times in the instance of parks. This despite the fact that drainage and flood control has the largest documented need, almost 50% of the entire infrastructure need. So finally, we also encourage city staff to support formation of a standing committee that is going to regularly discuss drainage and flood control needs and get community input on a regular basis and have community folks involved in coming up with a plan to address them in the most effective and efficient way. Thank you.
District 5.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maria Tijerina for District 5, and along with my fellow colleagues from District 5, we want to thank everyone for and the committee, of course, for the opportunities to serve on this bond committee. It has been very interesting, very informative, and the conversation and exchange of ideas have really been an eye-opener, and it's certainly I found to be more appreciative of the needs of the city in terms of drainage and flooding needs that our citizens have. I'd like to thank our co-chairs and my fellow committee members here, along with the staff for the information and the work that they have provided for us, and of course the citizens for taking the time to present their concerns. It certainly gives me an insight to other neighborhoods aside our very own. Our committee members here are in support of the recommendations that have been placed before us for the bond projects. And we certainly thank you in advance for supporting our two in District 5. If there is money available afterwards for below the line considerations, we would like you to consider the Frio City project, which is item number 7 on those below the unfunded below the line projects, I believe. And we also are in support of having an ongoing committee be established for continuity and to be able to adjust the needs as they become known. It's easy. We've experienced already several major floods, and then it seems like that's probably going to be more common in the future. So I think we have to be ready and poised to make the adjustments necessary as far as different needs throughout our community arise and are needed. I think, as mentioned before by other committee members, that it's important to keep the priorities in line with life and property damage that may occur. So definitely we are in support of that. And with that, I thank you.
And last but certainly not least, District 3.
Well, I hope this isn't an omen about things set to come. Like all of our colleagues, we want to thank you and Suzanne and Chris and the city staff. You've done a wonderful job. We support the projects as recommended. We support our two projects. If we do find ourselves in a situation where there's extra funds, we feel that those funds should be directed where they have the best impact. It doesn't matter what district, doesn't matter who, it's where the best impact to address flooding. I agree with my colleagues from District 10 and all this. It's so severely underfunded, drainage and flooding. It's not as high vis. Unfortunately, everything Neffy does is underground. So people don't drive by it. They don't go and recreate on it, but it is vitally important to a healthy community. And we feel that a standing committee would help bring more awareness of the issue in the public's realm. Our colleagues at Parks and Housing and Streets have done a good job of being out in the community talking about it. There's, no one really wants to talk about drainage until we have a flood, because it's not sexy, but it is critically important. So we support that wholeheartedly. And like I said, we support the projects as recommended, and then we trust our colleagues that if we are in a situation where there are additional funds, collectively, we can find where those funds will have the most impact for the citizens. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all your comments. Before we get started on motions, just want to remind everyone, number one, if you're going to make a motion or a second, please state your name for the record for city staff. Two, don't forget we are voting with these cards. If you are voting in favor of something, the green card, against something, the red card, and if you decide to abstain, that will be the yellow card. Everybody should have their cards. Regarding Robert's rules, we'll be doing things by Robert's rules. If anybody has any questions about procedures or process or any of that, just feel free to ask so we can make sure everybody knows what's going on, and we'll do our best to make sure everybody knows exactly what we're voting on. And just remember, as stated earlier by our tri-chair, Brandon, we need to make sure we have a package that'll pass, because if it doesn't pass, nobody's projects get done. That being said, we'll move on to the first item from the Bond Committee Motions and Recommendations list. That'll be this one here, which is approval of the recommended 19 projects for bond funding totaling $162.9 million. This is just the 19 projects. It does not include the art funding. As you can see, similar motions were recommended by District 7 members and District 8 members. So now we're looking for a motion for approval of recommendation of those projects.
So moved. Bianca Maldonado, District 7.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Patrice Melanson, District 10.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you give them a
Any
moment,
opposed?
there we go. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Wow. Nice. Very, very nice, everybody. Okay. Item number 2, recommendation that the City Council waive the requirement to apportion the percentage for art in the drainage and flood control in the 22 bond and authorize reallocation of the 1.5% within the bond category totaling $2.47 million to a flood and drainage project. This is something we came up with after talking to you all, and it had support from District 10 members and District 7 members as well. Yes, Mr. Kamen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please allow me to introduce myself. I've been absent all along because I didn't serve on this committee until tonight. I'm a substitute for another District 5 member. My name is Mark Hammond. I served on the Streets, Bridges, and Sidewalks Committee, and I am going to argue in favor of the motion. So on Monday night, there was a proposal within our committee, Streets, Bridges, and Sidewalks, to reduce funding for public art from 1.5%
Mark, are you actually
to
making the
1.
motion?
I'm arguing in favor of the motion.
Sorry, but can you just say that you moved to remove?
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
funding?
I'm sorry. I thought we were in discussion.
No.
I move to reduce public art funding to 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Patrice Melanson, District 10, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So on Monday, I argued in favor of keeping the 1.5% within our committee, Streets, Bridges, and Sidewalks, because we need better streets, we need better sidewalks, but we need art also. But tonight, I'm going to vote that we reduce the funding from this committee, drainage and flood control. The public art percentage, I recommend that we drain that to 0, because when it comes to drainage, people's lives are at stake. We need art, but we also need people to survive in homes that don't get flooded. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Yes, sir.
This is, I'm not saying if I agree or disagree, but in one of our meetings earlier, I thought the 1% was a mandate from the city that's already been approved. And all we had flexibility with was the 0.5%. Was that incorrect or not? Can we get clarification on that?
So we do have an ordinance that sets art at 1%, but that does not preclude you from making a recommendation to council that you eliminate it completely. Right. Because when council takes action on February 10th, they do have the ability to waive that requirement.
And may I just, Ray Rodriguez with City Attorney's Office. So when we're talking about the pond propositions, the percentage is usually in that proposition. So if your motion is to take it out of this proposition, that's appropriate.
No, I think our motion is to be able to reallocate it to an actual project versus to
Yeah.
art.
As long as we're sticking within this
Yes, sir.
proposition, that's
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes, within the 165 million that we have.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Correct.
that's correct.
It is germane to just the drainage projects.
Correct.
That's all. We're not advocating for other committees to do the same thing. They have their purview. We have
Right.
ours.
And two of them have already acted. So yes, this is just pertaining to this committee's recommendation.
Correct. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Yes.
Christopher Fullerton, D8. Could I make an amendment along the lines of what District 1 suggested on the first page of this packet, that in the event that City Council does not follow our first recommendation to 0 it out, that any money they do keep for the arts the artist should be integrated into the project's design process from the beginning. So that would be our second recommendation if they don't listen to us the first time.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
I second that amendment. Patrice Melanson, District 10.
I think it's a friendly. If
Did
you
you guys
accept it as a
follow
friend-
that?
Yes.
I do think
yes.
that could be included in the memo, sorry to butt in, if you wanted. It doesn't have to be a part of this actual motion. It could be included in the co-chair's memo to the city manager and council,
Okay.
just as a thought.
Thank you. So the amendment was that if council does not waive the arts funding, that the art be incorporated into design from the beginning. It's not an afterthought. It's kind of an if-then statement. You know, our primary, wipe it out and do another project or whatever we decide to do later. A secondary, well, if they don't do that, then incorporate it from the beginning. Don't leave it as an afterthought. Okay, I see a hand over here, and then we'll go to Bianca. Yes, sir.
Once again, I'm going to ask for some clarification because in a prior meeting, we were told that although it's the 1.5% per committee, it all goes into a fund. And then Public Art San Antonio or whoever meets it out. So this amendment, while I appreciate what my colleague is asking for, I don't know if you could practically speaking, if that's feasible, if, I mean, the art isn't going to be part of the culvert. The art might be at a roundabout somewhere. So to mandate that the artist has to be at the outset of the process might be hard for them to fulfill. Because it all, I believe, and I'll ask for clarification, I could easily be incorrect. It all goes into a big fund.
That is correct. And I see, Donkey, you had your hand up, and then we'll go.
Bianca Maldonado, District 7. I am in support of the motion because our needs are so great. And I'm kind of embarrassed that we didn't get more money in our category, given the size of a $1.2 billion bond. The needs are great. You've seen not even some of our projects were able to be estimated, which means they're not rolled up in that need per se. So the need is, in my sense, undervalued. And so I think by saying that life safety is a critical issue above public art, I think is very integral. And that, to your point, sir, yes, how many drainage projects have art on them? So I'm proposing a motion to talk about trees, to plant trees, which is more relevant around a drainage project on the scope of what we're seeing. This has been an income generator for public art, these drainage projects have in prior bonds. And the city's violated their own ordinance because there's a $500,000 limit to the projects, that a minimum amount, and projects below that amount have gotten the art 1% in the past. So I'm okay with saying, let the other categories generate art funding at this point, because the need is so great and we were given no tools other than this one bucket. So let's stretch it as far as we can, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, the actual.
Wait, we've got to leave.
Yes.
So,
Sorry, Mark.
yeah, we just, for the sake of keeping everything clear and allowing us to make sure we're keeping proper track of the motions, we're asking that we stay on the topic of the motion on the floor, which is to reduce it to 0.
Thank you. But I've already accepted the proposal as into my motion as a friendly amendment. That's a substitute for the main motion, and so it is the motion.
Point of
And I'm wanting
clarification.
to.
If I may, Andy Segovia, City Attorney, the two motions are incompatible. Asking to zero out art. So first, this committee has to decide on that. And then if you decide, if that fails, then you can talk about art funding. Because if your motion passes to zero it out, there's no need to talk about requirements. So that's why we're saying you should keep those two motions separate. One motion, your motion is first, which is to zero out the art funding. And again, if that fails, then the next logical thing would be to talk about what requirements you put on art funding.
Thank you. You've convinced me.
So, Mario Aguilar, District 8. So there should be two motions then. Is that correct?
Correct. So correct. We were working on the motion on the floor, so if we could handle that first, that'd be good.
Okay, yeah, and that's one of the things as we were going through discussion, I was at some point going to ask for, because friendly amendments also based on general consensus. And so that then it would have been asked, was there any objection to adding that? Because technically speaking, with Robert's rules, there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. They all are supposed to be treated the same. But based on what we were just told by legal, that the proposed amendment is not compatible with the main motion, which is zeroing out the art funding. So that being said, we're going back to the main motion of zeroing out the art funding. Do we have any more discussion on deleting the art funding?
So can we get a little more clarification on how this would go down at council? Is it literally just if our motion approves and they have a majority vote to approve the drainage, then it's just that they can override whatever it's called, the 1% for the art, they can override that with just a majority vote?
Rod's going to speak to that.
Yeah, council can, with the majority vote, they can override an ordinance.
Okay. And can anybody speak to a precedent for that? Or
I don't know that we've ever waived art in the past since we've established that.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, you all are going to make a recommendation to city council, right? And this is going to be a part of that, whichever way you vote here, right? So that recommendation will be received along with the recommendation for streets and for housing and all the propositions at the same time. And then further in February, council is going to act on what's actually going to be on the ballot. So anything could change, honestly.
So can we get a reading of what the current motion is that we're going to vote on right now then?
So you would reduce,
We have it, we're just going to
Yeah.
read it from what is in your packet.
got it, okay, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, recommendation that the city council waive the requirement to apportion the percentage for art in the drainage and flood control in the 2022 bond and authorize the reallocation of the 1.5% within the bond category, which is 2.47 million, to a flood and drainage project. Essentially, make it zero and reallocate it to a project.
And we will choose that project later if that passes tonight.
Can that be more than one project?
Sure, it's whatever we decide.
Yes.
Okay.
We as a committee will decide. Yes, sir, in the back.
So is there or is there not an amendment on the floor for the original?
There
motion?
is not.
No, they decided the amendment does not match, and therefore would not meet the technical definition of a friendly amendment. Yes, Mr. Kamen.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify in case anybody was wondering. This motion is pertaining to the art funding with the Drainage Committee, not other committees.
For the sake of form, I withdraw the amendment too, so.
Thank you.
So do we need a second?
We had a second.
We have
had
a second from
motion and a
D10
second.
from Patrice on the original motion by my notes.
Yes. And is there any further discussion
Yeah,
on?
I have one more comment.
Okay.
I think I'm probably a little bit in the minority here by the discussion, but I appreciate District 8's comment on if this doesn't pass, and I think that is what I was trying to get at. Is that art kind of has a negative connotation a little bit because it is an afterthought a lot of times, and some of the drainage projects that we all know by just driving around the city and especially on the bus tour, I feel like while it saved some homes from flooding, still probably devalued their quality of life. And I think that that art really is part of a city, and quality of life is super important. Life safety is way more important. I get that, and I'm saying this hopefully cautiously. Hopefully you can hear the caution. But I guess I just wanted to state that. I realize that's kind of the minority, but I do feel that if art is integrated, even in a drainage project, say on ceiling channel in the walls or something, right? If it's integrated at the beginning of a project, I feel like it can be transformative for a city, because I think that the crazy thing is a lot of these projects or problems that we're looking at are the history of neglect of natural systems, things like that artists really can highlight for us. So I guess I wanted to state that I do feel like art in drainage projects, if integrated at the beginning, could have really a transformative impact.
Patrice Malance on District 10. Caleb, I totally appreciate where you're coming from. However, to go back to what Freitas mentioned earlier, the funds from this are not necessarily art for a specific, in other words, there's not like a 1.5% for that project. It goes into a big pot at the city that then they decide where the art's going to get done. So I think it's totally two different instances. It's not that drainage projects would have art done with them. They might, they could, if the city decided to take one of the drainage projects and have money from that art pot, carve out some of that to go for art for that particular drainage project, but they're kind of two separate things. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I think a lot of us agree that art is important. However, in this case, as said earlier, it looks like a lot of committee members are looking for the other bond packages to take care of that. And let's just have a couple more comments, because at some point we need to vote on things. Okay.
Chris Deves from District 9. One of the things about this is that 1% is by city ordinance, plus you have the 0.5% that is kind of discretionary here. And I think one of the things we had talked about was maybe just reducing that 0.5%. But when you talk about drainage, $800,000 doesn't do anything. And I think the point is that we need a 2.4 million can give us another project to do, just to shave off the discretionary 0.5% isn't going to get us there. And if this motion passes, great. But if not, I really believe that discretionary 0.5% is more important to be spent on flood control than be spent on art, because that's the part that is within the city councils to alleviate. And honestly, at the end of the day, when you look at it, even if we put the additional money here and get a real project done at 2.4 million, you're still spending more than the 1% floor, let's say, over the other bonds here. You're just not going to the full 1.5. That's my thoughts.
Bianca, District 7, I just wanted to comment. I appreciate District 1 comment about wanting to integrate art into the actual project itself, but unfortunately, that just is not the beast that presents itself as an option at this point, unless you're heavily involved in the design at the very forefront. And I just want to say that it could be a recommendation after the fact, after we vote on this item, because all we're doing is generating income. For example, Sealy Channel 1 and 2, that big old piece of art in Woodlawn Lake that's what it paid for. That's how that money got spent. Phase 3, they're actually etching in the concrete on the bridge that we passed over during the tour. It's very rare for a drainage project to get any kind of art on its location. And that's why I really support this in the generation of wanting to have more money for other drainage needs. Thank you.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay,
Yes, I'm sorry, but maybe I misunderstood Caleb's comment about,
hold on. I think, Razi, were you going to speak?
Yeah, let me just give a little background about the public art. Before 2017, our policy was 1% and do on the project. Many times we had smaller project, 1 million, 1% of the 1 million really didn't buy too much art. As Bianca mentioned, on the drainage project, really didn't make sense to go put over there small art-related item. Since 2017, we decided rather than doing for project, we do for council district. We work with council's office and community, find the right place for right art to build there. I think that's what we end up doing. Since 2017, we do only regional big art, not just per project.
Thank you. I heard somebody wanted to call the question. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I had my mic on. I think I'm not sure if I misunderstood Caleb's comment about flooding and people's quality of life. But I can tell you that District 5 is one of the poorest districts in the city of San Antonio. And our quality of life is stemmed by direct flooding. Years and years, decades since the flood in, I think, 1921 or what was it, the 100-year flood. Since that time, they have disregarded District 5 projects to try to improve our quality of life in our neighborhoods. So for me, this is like, a no-brainer to, add those additional funds into the flood and drain projects. As I said, they're about life and art. Art is important, but we could find a way to integrate it in there through the process of we have so many companies coming to San Antonio that have a lot of money that can help support those kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you. The question has been called. So all those in favor of the motion to zero out the art, say aye. Raise your card and say aye. Any opposed?
Passes. Motion's unanimous.
Oh, we have one.
Sorry. Okay, I apologize.
One in opposition.
One in opposition.
Thank you. Item number 3, Recommend that city staff require the analysis, use, and application of green stormwater infrastructure / nature-based solutions in the scope of all recommended bond projects in all categories to manage the stormwater and increase green space to benefit water quality, slow runoff flow velocity, improve habitat protection restoration, which includes natural channel design, add trees and native vegetation, and enhance recreational use. Increase in the use of green infrastructure is a recommended strategy in the SA Climate Ready Plan and is an effective strategy to improve resiliency in the city. In a nutshell, use green, nature-friendly design techniques.
So moved.
We
Alan
have a-
Ross, District 7.
Who made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. We
I'll
have a
second it.
Staff, did you get the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Leo, District 4, I second it.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Yes.
Freitas Felixson, District 3. I'm 100% in agreement with the recommendation. Question is, what do we do if it changes the bottom line on some of the projects in terms of costs?
Well, each project has to be designed in the budget. It's a recommendation to include it in the budget. So if you have a $11 million project, our recommendation is, hey, within your $11 million, design it in such a way that it preserves trees and then it has green infrastructure. So they still have to stay within their budget. It's just saying, when you start the project, when they hire the consultants to design it, please look at these things and if possible, incorporate them versus just doing, the same old, and then later, oh, yeah, we could have looked at that and we might have been able to afford to do that. We're saying, hey, we recommend you guys start with the design process by incorporating green features where possible.
So
It works great. If it can't happen because that's the nature of that specific project, that's one thing, but that's what it is. But the intent is not to add cost to the project.
So, for instance, like Peggy Drive at 20 million
Yeah.
will be 20 million.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it would not change.
I just didn't know if this was going to affect the numbers. Okay.
I think, Freitas, the idea is that we want to make sure that the city scopes it into the professional services that they're asking to make sure that the consultants have that skill and expertise to be able to look at a project from the get-go. As you know, sometimes if you don't think about these things at the very beginning, then they become more expensive as add-ons. So we're asking for it to be done at the very beginning of a scoping of a project and
Suzanne, that's correct. Actually, our idea to make, when we are selecting consulting, make sure the consulting team has expertise to design, and we will scope that one. But at the end of the day, budget is budget. We have to stay within the budget.
I support this move as well as this motion will give some open door to create additional code in creating of drainage and flood control protocol and project that the people who come with a plan, they will have to go through some additional code to make sure that we have preserve our trees, we preserve our green lines. That's very good motion, and I agree with that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If no further discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we do have one?
I guess, can you just clarify how we're going to go through these first motions? And are we going through all of these motions too? Because
yes.
Well, some of them overlap.
Yeah, exactly.
So we didn't, we tried to get the best language we could, but I mean, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It's the intent of the motion. Like, for example, we know that some other motions suggested some issues of green infrastructure. We tried to take the language and squish it together, but got the general concept of making sure that green infrastructure and nature-based options were included.
Okay, and yeah,
If you want to modify the language, you can.
That's what I was wondering. What is the rule you were talking about? Robert's rules on amendments on this? Are we allowed to do that at all or not? Or?
Yes, you can make an amendment, and then if it's germane to if it has to do with the motion,
okay,
then we can vote on the amendment. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my previous one that I submitted is on the first page. If anybody wants to review the language too, but I guess I like this motion and fully supportive. Just cautious about the kind of lack of follow-up. And that's kind of what I was getting at in my motion, is that basically if green infrastructure cannot be included, I think it'd be great to have, let me read what I said. So if a project is not able to provide green infrastructure, a report provided by both city staff and the civil engineer consultant should be presented to council as to why this was not achievable. So just some kind of accountability, because I feel like this is a feel-good statement, and if it doesn't happen, then we'll just continue on the same path we're on.
So that amendment is in line and can be considered a friendly amendment, because it's just adding to the end that if it's not feasible, it'd be presented as to why it's not feasible. Does
And
the
Chris,
maker-
I just wanted
Yes.
to, we do have city processes in place to kind of do that already. A lot of our projects go before the city council audit committee, and that's exactly what they do. You know, they ask us those tough questions, and if we can do something, obviously it's good. If we can't, we explain why we couldn't do it. So there is a process in place for us to go and take these projects after we bid them out, and for them to review what we did.
Is there a, because on the building side, there's the energy code. Is there something similar on the civil side, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, it's UDC, and right now, and Neffy can talk about this better than I can, but most of this stuff is in there as an option. So it's not a requirement, but it's an option that the developer can use.
Chris, we follow UDC and we have a design guideline. We follow that one during the design of our project.
Okay. Yeah, and I was asking because, so like on the building side, the energy code specifically gets into conservation measures and make sure your insulation is this, and it goes into that level. And so I was just wondering if on the civil side, there was something similar that spoke to the green infrastructure. And it sounds like that would be the UDC that has those options. And so it sounds like the request, the amendment, is kind of already in the process. So do you still have that amendment out there, or if it's kind of already done, or are you gonna withdraw that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to keep it.
Okay,
I would support that, putting that into the language.
okay. So then we'll just,
Leo, District 4, I second that.
okay. So we'll consider that, if there's no objection, then we'll just consider that a friendly amendment, and to add that if the green infrastructure is not seen as feasible, then they just have to provide a reason why and demonstrate that. Is there any further discussion on the motion as a whole? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation for the green infrastructure, raise the green card as amended. Any opposed?
Unanimous, it
Abstentions?
passes.
Awesome. Item number 4, recommendation of City Council to establish an official city committee comprising of citizens representing all watersheds and council districts within the city to inform and engage residents and advise City Council and city staff in the creation of a comprehensive flood management and drainage master plan with project priorities, the development of the master plan, and tracking achievement towards defined outcomes to build resiliency will provide a transparent process to prioritize city investments from various public funding sources to address the current threats of flooding to life and property, while also exploring policies and actions that can reduce the further impact of flooding from development and climate change. Membership on the committee should include relevant experts, such as a civil engineer, and liaisons from partner entities, such as the San Antonio River Authority and Bexar County. And this was proposed not only by Susan and myself, but we also had support from similar language suggested from District 10, 7, 1, and 8.
Bianca Maldonado, District 7, so moved.
We have a motion and a
Freitas Stevenson, District 3, second.
second. Any discussion? Yes. You have your mic on. No discussion. Okay. Sounds like there's no, I see one mic on over here.
It's Bianca with District 7. I just want to reiterate, I think this is really important. We have seen that the scoring that Public Works has for their stormwater projects and the bond scoring are a little bit in conflict. And so what rises to the top and what is the priority, and having a committee that can work intricately to identify projects through multiple funding sources throughout the year, and not just the city, but working with the county. We should not burden all the stormwater by ourselves when the county has an income revenue source. So, but it is about collaboration. And I'll tell you, the biggest project on here that we have for Sealy Channel, it didn't happen with just the city. It happened by years of work. So that's why I think a committee is important, because as you've seen, this is a very technical topic, and trying to understand all those quad sheets as they come before us. You've seen the detail of information that we've received. And so I just would strongly advocate that we all support this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your green card. Any opposed? Abstain?
Unanimous pass.
Yes, okay, we're gonna skip 5 for right now, and the next item will be on the next page, which says the Flood and Drainage Bond Committee offers the following observations and considerations for future community bond process. Item A, which is align guiding principles and rating criteria to the unique characteristics of each bond category. Basically, bond projects should have a different rating category than, let's say, streets projects or parks. B, expand the bond meeting schedule. C, create more opportunities for citizen engagement. D, provide technical evaluation and project scoring in advance of the first meeting and expand the orientation meeting to include more detail on the staff recommended projects. And then E, promote multi-benefit projects.
So moved. Bianca, District 7.
We have a motion from District 7.
Patrice?
Minnie Sanchez.
Oh, we have a second
District 10.
from District 10. Any further discussions or questions?
Yes, this is Debbie Reed from District 2, and I just wanted to point out that a lot of these promotions that we are putting forth, including this one, will kind of depend a little bit on their effectiveness if we're make sure that we are looking at the flood control issues at a watershed without the political boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was the consensus from people that we've, as we were talking with the district, Susan and I, that's one of the things that kept and it was good to hear that people, they realize they're to represent a district, but to benefit Bear County as a whole, we got to look at the watershed.
Would you like to offer a friendly amendment that would promote watershed-based multi-benefit projects for number E?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Second.
Accepted first.
Okay.
I was just going to chime in. You know, we talked about the committee sending a letter to the city manager and copying the mayor and council. These are the kind of things that I think would be appropriate to put in that letter. You can make it part of your recommendation and we can present it to council, but I think it would be more impactful if you put this in the form of a letter to the manager and you copy the mayor and council. That way they can all see these. Just a thought.
Well, and Rod, I guess a clarification on that. We were more than welcome to send a letter, but I just wanted to make sure that it was on the record that we got an endorsement of those from this committee before we put it in a letter, so that it came from the full committee versus just the co-chairs. That's why I thought maybe the action would be more impactful, if that's okay.
I think that's fine. I was just, once again, I think these are more suitable, in a letter to the manager and copy mayor and council.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Bianca, District 7,
Yep.
I had one comment really
Yes.
quickly. I think it's important to follow up in writing, but it's also to make it a point of the public presentation that's presented to council, because those meetings are broadcasted. Our meetings are on YouTube here. We don't get nearly the amount of viewership on a YouTube channel versus a broadcasted city council. So I think it's important that our recommendations are read into the record. In addition, that we follow up in writing to the city manager and city council. I think it's imperative that we do both. We need to move the needle on drainage. Thank you.
Yes, we agree. All those in favor of the recommendations? Thank you. Any
Unanimous.
opposed, abstain? Looks like it's unanimous.
Okay, next, just real quickly, there were a few motions that were made separately from committee members that we were not part of those kind of grouped motions. And from my reading of them, I'm looking at, we did have the one from District 1 regarding the public art, but I think that is really a moot at this point. Under number 7, we had motion number 2, which was about the tree mitigation fund. We have motion 5 under District 7, which was about the ARPA funding. And then District 9, this one, is that a 9 or a 10? I guess it's 10, regarding asking the city council to redistribute current 2022-27 fund to additionally allocate financial support to drainage projects. I think that one is probably out of bounds simply because we can't do that based on the rules that we've been given. So, the other ones that are in front of you, we can, are the 7 District 7 actions. So I guess I would like to see if we would like to entertain a motion regarding city council to evaluate and utilize the tree mitigation preservation fund, District 7.
Do you want to read the rest of the motion? To recommend city council evaluate and utilize the tree mitigation and preservation fund reported during the fiscal year 2022 city budget presentation with capacity to expand programs be utilized to increase the tree canopies in areas of the 2022-2027 drainage bond projects. This action will directly benefit the areas of each drainage project and may be executed by planting trees along the reconstructed residential streets, receiving new infrastructure, green spaces, and right-of-way areas. This motion has no impact on the bond funds allocated and seeks to leverage existing and future resources to expand the city's tree canopy and achieve goals of the program. So moved.
We have a motion on utilizing the tree mitigation fund.
Could you turn on your mic, Debbie? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Debbie Reed with District 2 for utilizing the tree mitigation fund in order to enhance tree planting wherever appropriate in the drainage bond projects.
So your second promotion.
Second, yeah.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
It's Bianca from District 7. I just wanted to say the city does this already with some of their other bond projects. They've enhanced some of our parks with utilization of the tree mitigation fund. I'm just specifically asking that we recommend they utilize it in areas of drainage projects. Many of the areas that we toured are residential streets that have a lack of tree canopy. Anybody drive over there by Barber Drive and saw the drainage project? Did you see those trees? They're definitely not the size of the trees used in parks that were used for tree mitigation funding. So just asking for a little equity in tree canopy where it's available, where it can be utilized. And so I just think if there's a fund that's a surplus and it's not pulling from our bond money, let's leverage and make these drainage projects a little bit more beautiful than they already are, right? Thank y'all.
Afraid of Felix in District 3. I'm going to agree with Bianca. And then all of a sudden these drainage projects become pretty and then people like them. But trees do grow. Remember, that's the idea, but I'm 100% in support of this.
Alan Ross, District 7. I support increased tree canopy, but I think it's important to note that planting trees requires ongoing maintenance as well, so that the city also, keep in mind that anything we plant, and we had this conversation early on, but maintenance of trees and plants and all that stuff costs money as well. So, so a lot of that hopefully will be paid for by other programs, but we just got to make sure that we are understanding that maintenance is expensive as well. And if we're not going to maintain the trees, putting the trees in is a waste of money. So as part of this recommendation, just make sure that that's taken care of as well.
Okay.
And
Yes.
I'd like to just get some clarification on what the tree mitigation fund is currently funding.
It's pretty limited. It pays for basically planting trees. It pays for training, once again to further tree planting and planting the right trees and what have you. So that's basically it. I mean, Debbie could probably help me. She helped me create that fund a long time ago, but it's designed to plant more trees in our city.
I think Bianca is correct. We do use on some project. Actually, we have an item for council tomorrow, Civic Park. We are using some of the tree mitigation fund to plant some trees.
Thank you. There's no further, just, we have one more.
Yeah,
comment.
Leo, District 4. I think to Bianca's point, we like the tree mitigation, but we just want bigger trees. Can we just get?
Okay,
That's a UDC change.
there you go, UDC change.
Not the little
UDC
trees that we saw on
UDC
tour.
amendments are in progress, so. Thank you. So all those in favor of the motion, raise the green cards. Nice. Any opposed? And it's another unanimous one. Okay,
Motion passes.
motion passes.
Okay, we have one more, and let's try to see if we can get through this pretty quickly because we still have to reallocate our art money and get to the below the line projects. The last one offered by District 7 was about the ARPA funding. Bianca.
Here we go. Motion to recommend City Council evaluate capital drainage projects located in qualified census tracts as identified by the federal government standard for ARPA funding consideration. With the $3.2 billion in need, the ARPA funds may alleviate flooding with the city's most vulnerable populations and protect their homes from damage in a flood event. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from District 10. Do we need to have discussion? Yes, Mr. Kamen?
Point of information, the second sentence, is that part of the motion or? I don't
Yes,
understand.
sir.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the,
And to
Yes.
clarify, the motion is to use ARPA funding for bond projects or just to use ARPA
drainage.
money for drainage projects, period?
The wording was
Drainage.
very specific about capital drainage projects, did not state bond projects.
Okay.
Capital drainage projects that would qualify in those census tracts. Thank you.
Below the line project.
Below the line projects, yes, ma'am.
okay. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please raise the card. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so now we need to get to the projects. We need to start first with the reallocation of the $2.4 million that we have now made available with the reallocation of the art money. So just a couple of things. We need to figure out exactly how we want to do this. And a couple of things that the committee has brought up before, and I'm just going to put it on the table so that we can at least figure out, give ourselves some guidelines to what projects we would start to entertain for this 2.4 million. Y'all had mentioned before that you wanted, and I think Freitas may have made this statement earlier, that you wanted to make sure that projects had had a significant benefit, particularly in removing structures from the floodplain, home from the floodplain, actually flood benefit prioritized over just alleviating street flooding, more like structure flooding seemed to be something that this committee has said in more times as we looked at these projects. Another thing that y'all have said is the rankings that were done. If all the projects above that sort of made above the line, so to speak, in those recommendations kind of had a certain ranking, should we look at ranking of projects if they're ranked that fall within that same range of ranking scores? So those are the two things that have been sort of talked about relative to criteria. So I don't know if anyone wants to do we want to have a conversation about those criteria, or do we want to see which projects people would want to put out? I think it's only fair if we have certain projects that, again, we have 2.4 million, so it's not a whole lot, that if someone has projects that they want us to consider, we can put them down, get that group of projects on the table, and then we can start talking about them if they fall within that $2.4 million. So have some conversation.
Yes, and then also keep in mind, some of the other recommendations were enhancing the existing above the line projects, like if you can go one block more, that kind of a thing.
Alan Ross, District 7. One of the topics all along has been removing structures from the floodplain. And I think we've stayed pretty consistent with that the whole time. The only, my quick glance, the only unfunded project that I've found that actually does that and fits within the budget is unfunded item number 13, the Goodhue project. It's 1.98 million, removes 5 properties from the floodplain. It would make the most sense to me to put the money there. The one right below it is also within the budget, but only removes one structure from the floodplain. So my recommendation would be to apply that to make Goodhue the first item on the below the line. That if council agrees to waive the funding, that it would be applied there.
Goodhue on the table right now as one of the projects to consider. I also, I believe, and Rod can correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we see that there could potentially be a study or something that could advance a project to be more shovel ready, or should other funds become available, I think that is also something that we can consider with this funding as well. Is that correct? So funding, design, anything like that, that could advance a project. If the total cost of the project is over the 2.4 million, there could potentially be some aspect that could be considered.
Suzanne, since there is a potential we may get some federal funding, having some money to design or start designing this project to have a good scope, good cost estimate, and when we have to apply for this federal funding, we have to have some documents sent to them. I think it really helps us to be able to compete some of those bonds, some of those money.
So let's see if there's any other just that we can put on the table so we know the project.
Patrice Melanson, District 10. If we had 2.65 million, I would ask for design of the entire New Braunfels project. However, we don't have that much money. So we do have a potential project in District 10. It is in Salado Creek, and it's Fox Peak Drive and Fox Creek within the Fox Run subdivision. There have been documented property damages due to runoff, and while it is only at a high-level cost estimate right now, the high-level cost estimate is $1 million.
I'm trying to make a motion.
So,
Yes, I'm sorry, that is a new project.
And Patrice, the amount you were recommending, sorry. 1 million?
Is 1 million
Okay.
is what I understand the high-level
Yep.
cost estimate is
Okay,
right now.
just confirming. The issue is that when more than 3 mics are on, you can't chime in. So I'd encourage you to use your card or your hand to get attention versus turning your mic on.
Let's go Debbie first, and then Freitas, and then Bianca.
I would like to support doing more feasibility studies to have shovel-ready projects to put forth when additional funding becomes available, for sure. And the one question that I have is, how do we rank these, because there's not really any quad sheets or information about structures being removed that I see in a lot of these.
One of them did say Goodhue has got, I think, 5 properties that are removed.
That's, yeah, to be clear, property versus structure, right? Property.
Structure or a home, right? Is that what you're saying?
There's not always a structure or home.
Suzanne, may I make some recommendation? With 2.4 million, we could design 5 projects, $500,000 each, and make those projects shovel-ready whenever funds available, either from the city or from state MPO, we can push those projects for construction. 5 projects for 2.4, design only.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'd also like to look at perhaps a project in District 1 that might be a continuation of an existing, the Barber Drive. That would be El Montan.
Your mic's not on.
I was just going to say, I think there's value at looking at a project that might complete something. And if the El Montan can help with the Barber Drive, I think we should look at that as a committee, just to be able to say, check the box. That's done.
Okay, Bianca, and then I guess Mark, I think you were next, right? I think you were next. Okay.
Bianca, District 7. I would advocate for the Quentin Alley interim improvements at 780,000, depending on how the numbers shake out. But our primary concern is and will continue to be the Campman drainage project. And so, Mr. Garza, do you have enough money to do the study to ensure that that is a shovel-ready project? Because my understanding is the county is going to give money for the study. Do we need to put that on the list for study money?
The county has confirmed to me verbally that they will be funding that. We're in conversations now about who and when and why and where, but they have confirmed verbally that they would.
So at this time, would not put that as a priority for study because it's already funded by the county who is engaged on that project. But we would like, in the event that there's leftover money, that small alley project that floods 7 homes. They're not in the floodplain, but they do flood 7 homes. Thank you.
Mario Aguilar, District 8. Just a couple of questions on an item District 4, Ray Ellison. Is there anything that we can get, like federal dollars from that to help the base? Do we know? And on Frio City Road outfall, it says here the implementation of this project will remove 87 buildings from local flooding. Would we just be able to fund like the study and then hopefully get that into the 22 to 27 bond or the later bond program? Correct.
Thank you. Mark Hammond, District 5. Point of information. If the Amity project in District 2 at $6.7 million, would partial funding of that be possible? Would that have any impact, or does it have to be
No.
completely funded?
Nephew shaking his head no.
Let me address that one on Amity. That one addresses the entire system. I can't just build a culvert halfway down the block. I have to do the whole thing. So I can't chop that one up in smaller pieces.
But could it be one of the projects that moves into design?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it could be.
Yeah, for design, absolutely.
Okay.
I thought the question was, can we make the project smaller
Oh.
or phase it? But no, for design, certainly.
I did have both questions, and so I do want to add this to the list.
Okay, got it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to move number 7, the Frio City Road, Rosa Huiracheta, District 5, to consider design and a study, because it is a large project, but it will move 87 properties from the floodplain. Thank you.
Can we have a running count on the
Okay.
number of studies?
Yes, so we have so far on the list, I have Goodhue, Fox Run, Fox Peak, El Mantan, Quentin Alley, Ray Ellison, Frio City, and Amity. So yeah, they're on the screen. So I guess the question would be at this point, well, let me get Patrice and then I'll get you as well after. And then we'll start to deliberate here.
Patrice Malance on District 10. So certainly, if we had enough money, I would be advocating for North New Braunfels. That is a situation that is in dire need of something to be addressed. As I mentioned, unfortunately, to design the entirety of the project is 2.65. However, I would be happy if we had some funding to design maybe phase one of it, if it could be phased. So I would certainly ask for consideration for that if we did decide to focus on design efforts, because we do need some action for North New Braunfels. Thank you.
Number 22, Conception Creek, which is 44.8. Obviously, that can't be funded. But is there a design of that done at this point, or is that something that could be designed?
No design. We have not done any design on this project. None of
Is
them
there
has a design.
Okay, so is there is allocating money to design that? I mean, what's the guesstimate of the cost?
We want to
of design?
design a project. There is a potential for funding. We don't want to really design a project and put on shelf and never going to be built.
Okay.
I want to advocate for Mud Creek project. We don't have anything to that project. I want to show on the screen some, move forward, guys. More. Keep going. Yeah, Mud Creek project, as you can see, that project will possibly include creating channels for Mud Creek, from Mud Creek Park to.
You want to use the laser?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm okay. Okay, thank you. And to the McAllister Park. As you can see, there is three major construction going on that project, and they all require letter of conditional map revision. So I think that we should also include that in designing the project for that, because it's a water quality area. This is a project, it's very fast growing area as well. It's District 10. And I want to show you the picture. One more. Yeah, that's a Mud Creek. That's a Mud Creek, and that goes through the properties. Thank you.
Okay, we obviously have more projects on here than we can fund. So we have now 10, I think I have 10. I hope that matches what y'all, I can't see that far. So I'm assuming that matches. So let's try to come up with a recommendation here. Obviously all these projects total way over the ability for us to fund with $2.4 million. Now that does not mean that some of these projects could not be priority as we move to below the line projects, but we want to make the most out of our 2.4 million. Now, some of the comments that were made at the time when we did through some of the justifications of why we wanted to do that is we want to have an impact, right? We want to be able to ensure that projects are going to be moving forward. So I think that if we use some of the criteria that we talked about before, I mean, the expanding benefit and, trying to get as many homes out of the floodplain as possible, you're looking at areas that we know we were told by the citizens in front of us. El Montan was a project. Quentin Alley was a project. Of course, in North New Braunfels. All of those, we had, I believe those three, and I can be corrected, we did have citizens that came in front of us to talk about those three particular projects. So I guess I'll start with those because those were known flood, I'm sorry. Yes. Eric. Sorry. Did you?
I'm sorry, I just want to make a comment when you were done, Suzanne.
Okay. Well, anyway, those three projects, we had citizens that came in front of us and talked about those three projects, if I'm not mistaken. So would we want to at least consider those initially as we're thinking about some allocation towards those projects? It would be something I would propose to put on the table. Yes, Patrice.
Patrice Malance on District 10. I just want to point out for North New Braunfels, the Phase 1 from Austin Highway to Castagna Avenue, there will be 43 properties removed from the floodplain. Thank you.
Do you have something, Eric, to say?
Yeah, I was just going to add, and we'll add them, we'll ask them to add this to the list. The Barber Drive Phase 3 is in our hazard mitigation plan. And so we have two projects on here that are hazard mitigation. One, the Frio City Road outfall. Barber Drive Phase 3, there's 6 phases to that. That's part of our hazard mitigation plan that was submitted and approved by FEMA and is an important project. They're all important projects, but that has some flooding characteristics that I think are important to put on y'all's radar.
But I guess for clarification on the El Montan project, if that did get endorsement from this committee to move forward, could we incorporate a design of that into the project for Barber Drive that is on the approved list? It would be an extension essentially of that project.
Yes, we can add for the existing project we have on the bond
Okay,
above
so-
the line.
So now, so the 4 then that would be that seem to meet many of the check the boxes are El Montan, Quentin, Frio City, and North New Braunfels. Those 4 projects for some prioritization. Again, I'm just trying to get a motion on the table to see if how that would work. Obviously, all of them total more, but if there would be some progress either through a study and or a design that could move those projects forward. How does the committee feel about that? Comments on that?
Bianca, District 7, could you clarify which ones do not have a study right now? So they would, you're looking for a study for New Braunfels Phase 1, a study for Frio City Road, and a study for, is Barber Drive Phase 3 already studied? Oh, that's the El Montan addition to
The El Montan, what we'd be talking about here is either study and or design to move the project forward in some sort of technical way for El Montan, Quentin Alley, Frio City, and North New Braunfels. And try to figure out how to allocate so far the 2.4 million towards that, whether it's $500,000 each. We'll have to get some guidance from Neffy and or Razi on what it would take, and then we could see what would be after that.
Suzanne, if I could add, the 2 projects identified there on El Montan as well as Quentin Alley would be what staff would recommend. Those are very good projects that we can move forward and build. The remaining projects through our annual budget, we will be looking to provide planning studies or PERs or final designs through that. That's our normal process. Our recommendation would be to use the bond money for actual projects and not just studies.
Say that again, Neffy. Those 2 projects can be designed and built with the $2.4 million.
That's correct, sir.
Actually, there will be probably some money.
Which 2 projects? There's a lot of projects.
Number 23 and 24.
So which 2
So
are those?
Barber Drive Phase 3, the El Montan project, as we're saying, right? And then Quentin Alley, those 2.
Okay, so clarification then, you're saying that those 2 projects, if we were to prioritize those, would not only be designed, they could be constructed?
Correct.
Okay. Gib?
I'm not quite all familiar with these studies and everything,
but I'm trying to just see how we can get a project started. So we have $2.4 million, and I'm figuring that our good Public Works Department will save 1.5 million in all these projects. So that would take us to 3.9 million. So why can't we just say, and give you the discretion, anything under 3.9 million, y'all guys run with it and get something on the books?
I like that. Actually, that's what we got from street committee. Rather than them to ranking the project, they live up to staff, depend on, like as Rod mentioned before, some of these projects may be number 5 on the blow line, but is qualified for ARPA or qualify for MPO funding or qualify for federal government. We rather have that flexibility rather than really ranking, and the number 1 doesn't go forward, we are stuck there.
Again, we're not talking about below the line projects
That's
here.
correct.
We're talking about creating new projects above the line that would be funded. The 2.4 million is in our bucket available to allocate to a project. So-
That was what I was going to say exactly.
So we want to clarify
It's
that.
a little bit different than what we did the other night because those were below the line. You've freed up the funds and now you've got to identify the expenditures.
Okay. Yes. sir.
Well, we have 8 projects under, assuming we get 1.5 million from the savings of any other projects, then you have 8 projects that you could conceivably run with. Am I correct?
I understand what you're saying about potential savings because they've dealt with that in previous bond projects. At this point in time, I wouldn't count on that because I know construction costs are escalating. They're still escalating. Lead times are still escalating. And I don't know if staff wants to chime in on what their projected savings, if any, are on any of these bond projects.
Well, then why don't we just, anything below 2.4 million, y'all guys run with? So we get something going because a lot of this issue is all about getting as many projects as we can get available. Our George Road project that we were sweating here came in at 2.2% of the budget. So we were just of the $165 million. That's how close things were for us over here at this side of the table here. So I'm just trying to get someone, I don't care what district it is, to get a project going.
Let me just
The 2.4 million.
let me just reiterate, our position is going to be the two projects that we would recommend above the line would be El Montan as well as at Quentin Alley. Those are 2 good projects that would be our recommendation to fund with that extra funding.
2 total together.
We could do that on the side real quick. Jessica, can you help us do that? Just to give you absolute clarity.
It's 193.
2,280,000.
Yeah.
I was going to make a motion. I was going to move to include Barbara Drive, go to El Montagne and Quentin Alley, and then give the city 195,000, which is the remainder as discretionary funds to do whatever they see fit. We would.
Or we
add
might
those
suggest you add it to a project.
What, 190, add it to a project?
Yeah, Frio City, or I would add it somewhere.
What, for a study?
We
For a
could add
study?
it for greenscape, like robust trees, so that we don't see big
I
trees.
mean, I thought we had, what, we got 195 left. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a motion. Can we get it? Is there anyone?
Well, we don't have the 195
How
allocated.
about to Quentin Alley? You
Add it
could
to
beat
the
that.
alleys. There's plenty of alley work that needs. Yeah, I would add it to the.
So the recommendation is we're going to move to add Barber Drive Phase 3 to El Montagne and add.
There you
what,
go.
973
Exactly. Jessica spent all the money
to
there.
The
Yep.
Quentin Alley project.
Correct.
So moved. That's my motion. I can't move my own motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on these 2 recommendations.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Yes.
Minnie Sanchez, District 10. I'm confused. So this money now is supposedly going to these projects because they are projects. We're not considering design or studies or anything else?
Right now, the motion on the table, and you can vote against it or for it, is these two projects to move forward into design and construction to get the benefits of these two projects within the $2.4 million. So the motion on the table is beyond just design, it's actual implementation of these two projects all the way through to construction. So we can.
Thank you for clarifying that, but that still concerns me for everyone else whose project didn't make it on the list, and they have had issues for years and years and years.
Yes, you understand. And plus, this is just for the art money that we said to zero it out. We still have the below the line. And then if as Susan said, if the motion does not pass, then we still have 2.4 million to spend.
Pull up some of these other.
Thank you. AB Salinas, District 1. I just want to say that I'm in support of the motion as it's been presented, and I think being able to use the funding for capital projects is exactly what we should be doing. And I'm hesitant to recommend funding for studies as part of this, just that in the last bond, we had recommended and allocated funding for the New Braunfels project to be studied and evaluated. And, we're still kind of talking about it now, and this opportunity to go and do something I think is really beneficial. The other thing that caught me by surprise and I was pretty floored by is the Concepcion Creek at 44.8 million and 3,000 properties or structures removed from the floodplain. I don't think there's any project on this list that is as beneficial and impactful as that project. It's pretty amazing.
Patrice Melanson, District 10. Do we know how many structures will be moved from the floodplain with Barber Drive Phase 3 to El Montaigne, the one that's on the board?
Second.
That phase is 13 properties.
Okay, thank you.
Bianca, District 7. I just had a clarifying question and then a comment. Mr. Garza, you had mentioned about studies being funded through your budget based on some of our recommendations that we could make for below the line to ensure that many of the concerns that have been brought forward to us are prioritized and sent in our recommendation to you. Is that true? Because
That's correct. That's correct. So if there are areas that need to get studies that need to get done through our annual budget, we typically set aside some money to do that very thing. So if we receive it in the memo, the priority list, we can certainly incorporate that into our annual budget.
And I just want to speak in support of the motion also for the Quentin Alley. So those of you who probably, I don't know if you remember, but the story behind the alley flooding that is occurring, it's because the neighborhood welcomed an affordable housing development that is for over 65 individuals, and they have an on-site detention pond. And for whatever reason, the detention pond does its job, but there's still substantial amount of runoff in this area. These homes are literally 8 lots from the edge of the floodplain along Campman Boulevard. They see in an 1.5-inch downpour, gentleman had 2 feet of water behind his house. And it's like a river runs through it. You walk down that alley and he's putting metal scaffolding behind to keep the water from coming into his house. It's an elevation, it's a topography issue. And I will tell you, you will impact the lives of 7 individuals on that street who might be able to sleep through the night when it rains because they won't have to worry about the water coming through their home when they're not even in the floodplain. So would appreciate your support and look forward to prioritizing below the line projects too. Thank you.
Greatest Felix in District 3. I would advocate that we look at the projects below the line. I would add Blue Wing to below the line. I just keep turning off. I don't know. But when I look around, what I can see is we can take the money that we chose to pull out of art and immediately impact citizens in our community with projects that we can complete. I know studies are important, but we don't know for certain how much money we're going to get, right? And we know right now we can make an immediate impact on these citizens. And we believe we're going to get funds. We know we'll get some funds. We don't know how much. So we're kind of taking a gamble saying, let's put the 2.4 into studies when we know we have something that staff's presented to us. And it's not in the district I'm representing, but it's in the city I live in. So I would move that we move forward with the motion and immediately change people's lives in this bond. And then go below the line, prioritize below the line projects, and then see if we get funding through the federal government.
Thank you. Very, very well said. We also have a time issues here, so I think if there's no further comments, we should vote on the.
Just a clarification, we're looking at number 18, the Quentin Alley, 780,000, correct?
It's at 973 just to ensure that there's extra coverage there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. If you look up here, you can see how the public art reduction was allocated between the two projects. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Do you want me to read? I'm sorry.
Okay, so all those in favor of the recommendation, please hold up the green cards. Thank you. Any opposed? I believe the motion passes.
Unanimous pass. Yep.
Awesome. Now, below the line stuff.
So we'll start over here with Patrice.
I move that the top project for below the line funding be unfunded project number 11, North New Braunfels Phase 1 for 18.8 million. That will remove 43 properties from the floodplain.
Second.
Mark
Benny
Hammond, District
Sanchez.
5, a second.
District 10.
Just 2 seconds there. You guys are good.
That's all right. Look. Any discussion?
Yeah, only 3 mics one at a time. Sorry, y'all.
Any discussion on the motion that we have on the floor for first item under the below the line projects being the North New Braunfels Phase 1? Any discussion? Bianca?
While I support the North New Braunfels, I do not support it as the first below the line. I support Campman Boulevard, the drainage project, whose study is already funded by the county. There is already a leverage acting relationship for that potential project. And no offense to North New Braunfels, but some of that's the runoff from Alamo Heights. And the city needs to work together. So when you look at how the water flows downhill, it needs to be a collaborative effort when you look between two municipalities. And I feel like Campman Boulevard is a more, should be number one over North New Braunfels because there's already a study underway and there's already an established relationship. I think, I would love to help with North New Braunfels because I know that they've come to multiple bond meetings. And that's the only reason I make that statement. So I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Benny Sanchez, District 10. North New Braunfels 10 runs into Alamo Heights,
Not the other way around.
not the other way around. And I would like to make sure that the city contacts the county and also Alamo Heights. Currently, I know I've had informal conversations with both officials. And so I think they're more than willing to do that. I don't know if the city has done that already.
And Nephi has confirmed that he's spoken to both of the bordering entities.
Thank you.
Fernando Camarillo, District 6, Just a question, are we, the below the line, is there funding allocated to this? Or how do we determine which project? I mean, I don't know if I really understand ranking below the line, if we should really start ranking projects like that when we really don't have a dollar or anything to base it off
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, I would, Rod had a recommendation at the beginning. Maybe he could repeat it just as a thought, if that's okay.
Yeah, Fernando, there is no funding. So the thought is, should funding become available, possibly from a federal source, maybe through savings through this bond or some other mechanism. We just applied for a raise grant, didn't get it, but there may be another raise grant in the future. So the idea is, what are the projects that this group deems important? So if funding becomes available, we put those forward. What I had stated to the group at the very beginning of this meeting was, what the streets committee did was, rather than go through this exercise of, trying to pick between your two children, what they did is they said, all of these projects are important. So, when you're dealing with federal dollars, some projects will score better than others. So we may want to look at the pool of list, and, if it's a raise grant, for example, one project, for various reasons may have a better opportunity to be funded. So we would, this would give us the flexibility to do that. So that's my recommendation to the group. Rather than try to figure out which one of these is more important, why don't you send these projects forward as a group, and depending on the funding source, we would choose which one to go for.
So Rod, with that recommendation though, I guess the question would be then, we have a spreadsheet that was provided to us by the staff that says potential projects below the line, which North New Braunfels is on, Frio City, of many of these others that we had talked about. However, Campman is considered on the spreadsheet that says projects requiring further analysis and development. So with your recommendation, you would suggest that if we wanted to pull, I'm just using that one as an example because it was on the floor, we would want that one to be put under the below the line project, because the rest of them are not necessarily going to be on the below the line list, is the way I understood how this was presented to us.
Right. That could be a way to do this. Yes.
Okay. So that would be an option, that we make sure we pull Campman up into the make it number 12, or what, it's not in priority order, it's just a number, and make sure that it's considered a potential below the line project that could be considered for future funding.
Can you explain which ones have studies that are underway right now? Because Campman does have a funded study. The below the lines, which ones have a study?
Yeah, if you could show us a list, that'd be great. Yeah, New Braunfels has had a study, right?
And also, sorry to interrupt, Patrice Malance on District 10. I guess I'm curious. So New Braunfels has a total score, while Campman does not have a total score. What does that mean in terms of project development? Thank you.
So none of the projects below the list have the full PER study, a preliminary engineering report study. That's part of what we're needing. In the case of Campman, because there has been some hydrologic changes in the area due to sealing and woodlawn and different things like that, the original design that was identified is going to change. So that's why we don't have a score and a selection of what it is. On North New Braunfels, last bond, there was a study performed that looked at what kind of impacts it would have downstream. That's the study that we have, and it provides some recommendations. Is it a final design? It certainly is not, but it does provide some recommendations of what could happen, and how we can design it to minimize the impacts downstream to Alamo Heights.
And Nephi, just for clarification, does Alamo Heights contribute to that flooding problem or no? Or are we contributing to their flooding problem?
The way it works is that the drainage that comes off of North New Braunfels drains onto Austin Highway, which then drains into Alamo Heights.
So Alamo Heights is not contributing to the problem. They're receiving potential.
And the coordination that we have had with them have been the result of the study that was funded in the last bond that looked at what is happening along the TxDOT system, along our system, and in coordination with the city of Alamo Heights. And the city of Alamo Heights has been clear to us about what they can fund in their city and what they cannot fund outside their city. So that's the level of coordination we've had with them.
Has the county been involved in discussions, and are they potentially a partner in this project?
The county has been involved in all of these discussions as well as TxDOT.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion that that the other group said, that all of them are important, and I'm hoping that, you know, the city council will approve that we move forward on a committee to make sure that that happens. But I'd like to make sure that one of our districts is not left behind. You know, I drive over in District 2 a lot, and I see this Amity project that listed number 7 on the above the line, I believe, and number 3 on below the line. And it's a very, very small amount compared to the other ones. And I see the development that is coming forth out in that area, and seeing how that has impacted San Antonio and the flooding down the road. I think it's something important to look at for funding, to make sure that we start, you know, trying to ease those kind of problems moving forward.
Okay. Okay, remember, we have a motion on the table about, that had a motion and a second regarding making the New Braunfels project the first project. We do need to act on the motion that was on the floor. So then we can decide if we want to go to depending on that action, then we can decide what else we want to do next. But I don't want to keep that motion hanging, because we do
Thank
have
you,
it on the
Suzanne.
floor. The motion that was made and seconded, that's on the floor, that we were doing discussion on, was to make New Braunfels Phase 1 the first project under the below the line projects. That was the motion that was approved, made and seconded. We have not voted on that yet. So if we want to take an action on that motion, then we can move, then depending on that outcome, then we can move to another recommendation.
Just quick comments regarding the New Braunfels. We have seen the citizen from that area who present his story. This project is problem with New Braunfels is it's over 30 years old. It's from 1992, according to his documentation and paperwork. And that moving this project forward will give us some good assurance that we do listen to our citizen, and we do our good steward in learning the thing. And second one, as the bond from the streets, they make the recommendation to make all this underfunded project to move forward once the fund become available. So what I think that we should approve the New Braunfels as the first unfunded project, and the rest of them put in a big pocket. And we already make a motion that we're gonna create the committee of the people who will be monitoring once the fund become available. The committee we are created will say, hey, all right, so we agree that when funds become available, we're gonna take care of whatever the project will need to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. You wouldn't want to.
Thank you. So, point of information, if we were wanting to follow the suggestion by Mr. Sanchez that we create an unranked list, then if we vote no on this motion, we would be able to do that in a separate motion. Is that correct? Thank you.
Can I ask maybe a technical question for Nephi on North New Braunfels? We're talking about flooding Alamo Heights. So would we not have to start there? I guess is one question. And then the gentleman that did present, I know it's going to be way more complicated than this, but one of the points he made was that the road was regraded, and that's what caused a lot of his specific flooding. So I know there's probably 30 other properties that were being flooded prior to that too, but I guess the question is, one, does this North New Braunfels project, if it's done, still flood Alamo Heights, or how does that work with the whole thing we've talked about, the downstream flooding? And two, is there kind of factual evidence to that regrading of the road, and would that solve a lot?
Let me address the first question. The way the North New Braunfels system works, it drains, it comes down North New Braunfels. If you've been there, you've noticed that there's some great inlets on the road itself. That has a box system underneath Austin Highway, and then it goes into Broadway. Broadway used to be called River Road because there used to be a river there, and they put boxes and then they put a road on top of that. So it's the natural place where water goes to. The coordination that we have with City of Alamo Heights is the result of the study that was funded out of last bond project. And it was during the last bond, there was a study that was performed to see what kind of impacts, if anything, we would have on Alamo Heights. The study identified if we did this type of box in this configuration, and I'm sorry, I don't remember it right off the top of my head, but they give us very specific guidelines that if we did it this way, we would not have adverse impact on Alamo Heights. Alamo Heights is well aware of that. They are planning to do work on Broadway itself. I don't know the status of it, but they're planning to invest money in Broadway. So this project, North New Braunfels, would, if we do it based on the guidelines, would not have an adverse impact downstream to the City of Alamo Heights.
How many properties out of the floodplain again for Alamo? 43. I just want to say that I'll support this project because I feel for the residents who have come to multiple bond input sessions. And I think that's something we should take away is what is the city doing with the input that's being provided and being able to deliver a project that addresses those concerns. I too see the same thing over here with our project that I'd mentioned previously. People have come and raised that concern over and over again, seeking a solution. If we don't move the needle now, we're never going to do it. So call the question.
Okay, question has been called. So all those in favor of moving the New Braunfels project from, I guess, 11 to the number 1 on the potential projects below the line for 2022 funding list, raise the green card and say aye.
If you're for it, raise the
Yeah.
green card.
If you keep them up, that would be helpful to me.
There you go.
And you go ahead and call the nays, and I'll
Okay.
go. Don't put down the green if you.
Yes, since we have the colors, we can call the no's also.
Yeah,
And
if
any
everyone would just
abstentions.
vote, that would be helpful to me. So 2 green on the co-chairs, yeah. District 1, 3 reds, am I correct?
2 reds.
2 reds, okay, I apologize. District 2, 2 reds, 3 reds. District 3, 3 greens. District 4, 3 greens, 2 greens, 2 greens, I apologize. District 5, 1 and, oh, sorry, 2 red, 1 abstain. 6, 3 reds. D7, 3 greens. D8, 2 and 1. D9, 1 and 2, or 1 and 1, okay, sorry. And then D10, 3 greens. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I see 12 green, 16 red, and 1 yellow. The motion fails.
Okay, so that motion failed.
It failed. Bottom line, though, North New Braunfels, which is not in Alamo Heights, it's the part that is in District 10. I don't live in that area, but I do know that traveling there, if it's raining, you don't go down that street. People's homes are flooding.
Okay, so we need to decide what we want to do with the rest of these below the line projects. We did have a recommendation from staff regarding looking at these as one big group without prioritization. And potentially if there are projects that are not considered on the front page that are titled Projects Below the Line Funding. We can pull some projects up if we want to. That is a recommendation, but we'll start over here. Sir, did you have a comment?
Well, I had a question with some of the comments the city manager made regarding the hazard mitigation funds. Is that money that's paying for those projects, or can you explain the hazard mitigation funds you were speaking of?
I can do that. So the hazard mitigation plan is actually a document that we put together for FEMA. It includes all kinds of hazards. And obviously the big one for us in our region is flooding. So there's a huge section about flooding. So what FEMA requires us to do is to put projects on there that we know of have issues. And we have many projects on that list. So whenever there's funding available from FEMA, they will look at that list to fund. So if there's funding available for flooding, they will look to that list as these are projects eligible for FEMA funding. So it's important that we put projects on that list. When those projects are complete, we remove it. That's the hazard mitigation plan.
So is FEMA flooding those specific projects that were prioritized on your list, or they give you a pot of money and you choose from your list?
They don't give us any. We may be eligible for money, but the purpose of the report is for every local government's got to do this, is to document what your local hazard mitigation issues are. And as Neffy mentioned, we have over $660 million in flooding hazard mitigation projects that have been identified. The council has to approve that every 5 years. And the primary purpose of that report is so that if we have a flood and we need to file for FEMA reimbursement after an emergency, then it's a documented area where we've got an issue. The flip side of that is that the city's been doing that for 5 years for a long time. There was a very concerted effort over the last, the council just adopted the current plan here a couple months ago, was, okay, $660 million worth of hazard mitigation drainage projects that we know. How are we going to solve for that? And so for purposes of prioritizing projects, everything's important, but if we can start taking projects off of the hazard mitigation list, then we make some progress.
Christopher Fullerton, D8. D8 does not have any projects below the list that have currently been identified on the forms that we have. And as we've heard earlier, we're pulling our hair out here trying to figure out how we choose between children here in the city. And I'm wondering if there's a way we can modify the recommendation that we received earlier from Mr. Sanchez and suggest a couple of metrics that they could use as they evaluate these projects. For instance, number of homes or structures that would be removed from the floodplain, and maybe two or three others. And also with a strong reinforced message that we want this to be open and public. So we want this standing committee to help advise moving forward so that they can respond in time if other funding pots become available.
Mark.
Thank you. Mark Hammond, District 5. I move to create a list of, an unranked list of projects for below line funding to include the North New Braunfels project, the Frio City Road project, and the Amity project. Amity in District 2.
Just for clarification, sir, is this a new list or is this the list that we already have of below the line projects?
There's a new list.
So, okay, you're advocating the creation of a new list.
A new list of unranked projects. Yes, and it may include others as well.
Mark, would you consider other projects that people like to add friendly amendments, if you will, to?
I would love to.
Okay. Yeah. So that being said, since you already have a potential projects list, would you rather just start with that and then see if anybody wants to add, or do you want to start, I guess, or do you really want to start with just the smaller list of projects and then
No,
as districts?
what I wanted to do was create a list, put these three on the list, and we can have amendments to add other things to the list. And if everybody agrees, maybe we don't have to vote on each one separately, or maybe you can decide which way is easier to proceed. I just want a starting point.
New Braunfels, Frio, and Amity.
Yes, I would like to see if you would consider a friendly amendment to add Campman Boulevard, which is
Yes,
seeking to remove 110 properties from the floodplain.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Hold on, real quick.
We need to get a second.
We need a second to Mark's motion.
Patrice Melanson, second.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I might suggest if we went district by district and we could see what needs to be added versus just, that might be efficient. I don't know, just a thought.
That's fine.
Maybe fine. We want to start
Okay,
with.
we'll start over here. We'll just go in order. One.
I think just a comment that we've had, and I think it's the process maybe that, and I know we are having that process here, but I think the staff has recommended that we don't hamstring them a little bit. And I think that I would be fine if North New Braunfels was the first project that was constructed, but if it gets caught up with something else, right? And so I think that's what I guess we can all list our projects and we'll do that. And maybe that's the way to go, and we each get a project, and then that gives the city enough to choose from. But I think that's just the process of trying not to hamstring the
Correct. The motion, I
city.
believe, is
Okay.
for an unranked list. It's a
Unranked
list of
list.
projects. That way, as funding becomes available, different projects meet different funding requirements. City staff can just kind of pick and choose the best project for that funding source. That's the idea. It's not a ranked list. It's a list of, hey, these are the next set of projects we want done. Figure out how you get the money, whether it's federal, county, state, rainy day fund, lottery.
District 2.
Clarification, this includes all the projects on here, new projects, below the line, everything.
Right now, right now, it's North New Braunfels, Frio, Amity, and we had a friendly amendment for Campman before the second, but I'm sure that will be added when we get to 7. So the motion that was moved and seconded was New Braunfels, Frio, and Amity. So do you want to add your projects? Anything
Yes.
else?
Yes, MT and Sumner drainage improvements.
Which one? Sumner.
Number 2.
Yes, great. Thank you. Got it.
That's already on there.
It's on there. Okay, district. Go ahead. Okay, are you done, Debbie? You finished? Okay.
Yes, thanks
District
for the
3.
clarification.
District 3 would like to add Blue Wing, please.
Okay. District 4.
District 4 would like to add the Watson Road project. It's not a project that's listed on here.
I'm sorry?
It's Watson Road
Watson Road.
and Ray Ellison. Yeah.
You're bringing up Watson Road from.
Yeah, is Watson Road a roadway?
I
project?
believe so.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a drainage project. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, just Ray Ellison.
Just
Ray
Ray
Ellison. Okay, got it.
Okay, District 5.
District 5, we don't have anything further to add except as I'm sorry, which one? Okay, Concepcion. We do wish to add Concepcion. Also, I offer to second everything that anybody wants to add to this list, so that we save some time. I didn't say Pendleton. Are we doing Pendleton? I'm sorry. The problem is I don't know anything because this is my first meeting. I'm not really on the committee. I'm subbing. Do we want Pendleton?
Throw it in.
Okay. My District 5 colleagues want Pendleton also.
Yeah, you can add this. He decided to create a new list, so this is your opportunity. Those projects that are not on the potential list, those potential for their funding, for their analysis, to move it up, and that's going to be our final list to council.
District 6, the lower crossing 106 Commerce, Heath Road, and lower crossing 113 through 116.
District 7, Campman Boulevard, 110 homes. The Woodlawn Lake outfall that is not in compliance with TCEQ standards. Thank you.
District 8, we support District 5 with Conception Park, or Conception Creek, moving 3,000 structures from the floodplain.
If we could pause after D8, we're just trying to give Jessica a half second to catch up. She's very close, so we're just going to need to do D8.
Lots of Control C, Control V.
That's right. Just a half second. I apologize. Yeah, so D8, Conception Creek, correct?
Nothing to add.
Addition to New Brownfields, Mud Creek, as well as the Folks Run drainage project. Thank you.
District 1, Shook and Annie Street.
Yeah, hold on, Jessica. Fox Run and D10 as well. Fox Run?
Fox Run
Creek.
area drainage improvement
Okay, Fox
at
area.
1 million.
And then in D1, you had Shook and you said a second one. I'm sorry.
Same
Okay.
project.
Okay. Sorry, in D5, we don't have Pendleton. Yeah, we don't have it on the list. They're pointing out.
Mike, as she's doing this, it looks like we have everything on the list on this front page with the addition of Campman, Concepcion, Mud Creek, and Fox Run or whatever, whatever it's called. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Woodlawn Lake outfall. Sorry. I thought that was on the list already. So thank you. Okay. So the list is presented with Campman, Concepcion, Woodlawn Lake outfall, Mud Creek, and Fox Run. They said it. Heath Road? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
He listed 3, which I.
Yes.
That's what we're doing now. Yep.
Yeah, so
Joyce Malance on District 10. Would everyone agree to a friendly amendment to focus on projects that will remove homes or remove property from flooding?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Call the question.
Just one other suggestion in addition to that, for the committee's consideration, maybe and projects that are on the hazard mitigation plan.
Did you catch up with the list?
Say that again. I think we're caught up with the list, I do believe. You want me to read it out? Would that be helpful? Okay, I'll read it out. If we could go to the top, Jessica, please. Okay, we're at the, yes, this is just randomized. Amity, Rio City Road outfall, which includes Pendleton, just so you know, Pendleton is not separate. North New Braunfels Phase 1, Sumner Drainage, Blue Wing, Concepcion Creek, Low Water Crossing 106 Commerce, Heath Road, Low Water Crossing 113 through 116. There we go. Campman, Woodlawn Lake Outfall, Mud Creek, Fox Run, Shook. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. You
Point
got
of
that, Jessica?
information.
Ray Ellison?
Point of information, D8 Christopher Fullerton. Could we just get a sum on column E? I know we're missing a couple of numbers, but what our total recommendation?
We could do that in just one second. Yep. Jessica, could you give us a sum? Don't add Ray Ellison, just what it is right now. He knows some are missing. It's going to be big. There's several very big projects.
Oh, yeah, I see 75 mil, and I'm like, yeah, it'll be big.
$321 million is what I see in the sum. Is that what you see, Jessica? 321 million with some missing.
Okay, so everyone's got their projects on it. It looks like, I guess I just need some clarification on the point of, the motion that was made over here. This was sort of a motion that everyone started adding to. And then she made a friendly amendment.
Yep.
To make sure that the consideration for prioritization is removing homes and structures from the floodplain and the hazard mitigation plan. So I'm just trying to figure out how to back up and get all this cleared up, because we really never got a motion. Because he had a motion.
Maybe Mark could restate his motion. if
Mark,
that's
do you
okay?
accept all the amendments?
Yes.
There's
I
more than,
second all the amendments, and I would like for this chart to have an additional column to indicate the projects that are hazard mitigation and the projects that remove homes from the floodplain.
Very, very nice.
Who seconded his emotion before?
Because the original
Patrice,
motion.
I did.
there's a second motion from Patrice, or
Okay.
a second from Patrice.
Okay, great, Patrice. All right.
And it sounds like everyone's cool with all those being friendly amendments, so we don't have to go through all the whole. Okay.
One big motion.
One massive omnibus style.
Motion. That's it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of all of this stuff? All right.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Yes.
Patrice Malance on District 10. I just would like to say that I will feel much more comfortable sort of leaving the project in staff's hands if we have that standing committee-driven group that will meet with them regularly. I will feel much more comfortable about that. Thank you.
Yes, and we can all call our council people and the mayor frequently to encourage them to follow up on our actions.
I suggest that we attach a message to this proposal to City Council directly, that we urge them to consider finding funding for these projects as a decent down payment on flood and drainage infrastructure moving forward.
Bianca, District 7, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I want to, challenge you to stay engaged. We've done our business here today, but this has to go before the voters, and we need people to support this. And people have to identify with a project so that they feel invested in this item as they go and support it on the ballot. So our job's not done by any means. I think we've done the hard work, but we also have to ensure that it passes. Because if we don't move this forward, then we know that we're only further behind the 8 ball when it comes to drainage. And most importantly, don't just think that after the voters approve it, stay engaged, follow the project as they have the Here We Come meeting, or they have the meeting to tell you they're getting ready to begin design and they're getting public input. And then working with your community to ensure that their voice is heard, because as you heard through our process, we had several people that have come to bond committees in the past. Well, what happened with their public input? It's important that we advocate for them, just as we did for each and every one of our districts, to move projects forward. And goodness, we need to press the city to get a solution. If we can fund linear creekways with a design guideline and say we're going to finish it by this amount of time and frame, we need to do the same for drainage. It is important. It is a life safety measure, and we need to ensure we have more funding in the next 5 years. We all identified the need is great. So let's ensure that we also carry the message to and offer more money in the future. I mean, that's 5 years down the way, but it comes around the corner like you wouldn't believe. So please, please stay active and ensure that we help move the needle on this. So thank you so much.
Get a total for the below the line? I'm just curious. I mean, I know she was waiting. She put in.
Yeah, I mean, there's several we still don't have money, dollar figures for, but the 321 million or before,
321 million. Okay.
before, yes, ma'am.
That's what Elon
357.
Musk makes in half a day in interest.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes, Mark.
Mark Hammond, District 5. I move that we write a letter to Santa Claus requesting additional funding.
Second.
Staff, do we have any further instructions or directions for the meeting or for the committee as a whole?
No, just so the committee knows, we will be presenting the committee updates to the council on January 12th. And then the council will review all the committee recommendations. This is the fourth committee that's finalized their recommendations. Our last committee will be meeting tomorrow night, our facilities committee. And the council will be moving to adopt the program the first week in February and calling for the election. So we still have a lot of work to do on the staff side as we go through the month of January. I did want to thank each of you for spending the time with us over the last month and a half. I know it's been a lot of detailed work and a lot of information, but appreciate the commitment and the time you spent with us. And I would second what Bianca said. It's important to stay engaged as you go through this process, even beyond the election, but really making sure that we're dealing with $357 million worth of worthy projects that are needed in this community. So thank you to everybody.
January 12th?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's highly encouraged.
Highly encouraged, absolutely. All right, can we have a motion to adjourn our last meeting? All right.
All those in favor for the last time?
Yes, there you go. Thank you all very much.
Adjourned.